Welcome back to our next segment, the CEO Corner. Now, this is where I get a chance to talk to people that own their own businesses, and tonight it's really lucky that we were able to catch Steve in between gigs. Steve Gaffney is a well-known author and speaker, and welcome to the show, Steve.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you seem to be a prolific writer. I must have like 5 of your books on the shelf at home, and now you've come up with an even newer version. Tell us a little bit about this booklet.
Well, it's different than the others, but I'm really proud of this with the 21 Rules for Delivering Difficult Messages, because it's very hard to tell somebody what probably they don't want to hear, but they need to hear. And one of the biggest things that people do is they let their silence do the talking. In other words, they don't say anything. How often have you thought, well, I would have just liked to know? In fact, the big problem I have found is not what people say, it's actually what they don't say to each other. It's what they leave out. And that's where we're thinking, couldn't you have just told me? It would have made a big difference. And in corporations, it's a huge issue because people get blindsided and surprised instead of being told the truth.
So do you find that in some corporate settings that where the communication gets stifled because people are not forthcoming with the details?
Absolutely. The number one reason why people do not share what they need to say is they're afraid. So the key to getting anybody to tell the truth, even at home, is to make people feel safe. It takes a lot more psychological energy to keep something inside than to let it out. So if you think about it, people want to tell the truth, but they get afraid, so they keep it inside. But if you create an environment where people feel like they can speak the truth, then they will. Now, that's easier said than done, right? For example, have you ever had somebody say, listen, Jeff, you can tell me anything. Please, no, go ahead. And then you tell them something they don't like and they flip out on you. Next time you say, note to self, forget it, I'm not going there. And that's the big problem.
So what's some of the fallout from communication breakdown where people are withholding, they're not being forthcoming?
Well, great question, because here's the issue. Here's what we found out, is that when people don't feel like they can share things, they don't share problems. And the big problem is that executives and managers feel like they're getting surprised and blindsided by big problems. But here's the thing, ultimately it was a small problem that somebody didn't escalate and share with the needed people. So that small problem becomes a big problem that causes organizations to have to devote huge resources. And so what we found by the work we've done is when we go in there, we teach honest communication. Actually, organizations are a lot more profitable and the revenue increases.
So what are some of the stakeholders in a corporation like that for the communication flow?
What do you mean by stakeholders?
Well, in other words, is HR department usually involved, or management? Or?
Well, we do work across the board. So we're with HR, with business folks, and with all the different functional areas. But mostly the work we do tends to be with people who are running organizations. Because what they realize is that people speak the truth more. And we're not talking about ethics. We're talking about just honest communication, open communication. When people share more, then better things happen. Here's the thing. People also withhold their ideas. They don't share their creative ideas because they're thinking, oh, then nothing's going to happen. Or if I share my idea, someone's going to take advantage of it. Or the bottom line is, it's not going to go anywhere. Why waste my time? Or how about this? I could share it, but they're probably going to knock me down and tell me how it's not going to work anyway. So forget it. So what we found is when you create that openness, then people share ideas and organizations are a lot more creative and innovative.
What are some of the methodologies that management could employ to help foster that open communication?
Great question. So the first thing that needs to get done is people need to be aware that this is the problem. Now, sometimes people say, no, honesty isn't the problem. There was a study done years ago that reported that 93% of people lie regularly. 93%. I actually think the other 7% in the study lied. Because we all lie. And some people say, well, it's not a lie. Well, lies of withholding, right? They don't share something. And also white lies that actually turn into big lies. But so the key thing is to first be aware that this is actually the main problem. Second, basically leaders need to model the behaviors that encourage honesty, right? For example, they say, please, we want to hear honest feedback, but then they flip out and they get defensive. They're going to shut down everybody. Third thing that needs to happen is employees need to be armed with the skills on how do you say things, especially if the person's going to get defensive. And we found there's 9 specific things that people need to do in an honest conversation. And the fourth thing, we need to hold people accountable. Honesty isn't a nice thing, it's a necessity. And if you're not honest, you're gone. We need to have that kind of policy that says to people, look, we want honesty and we're going to reward you. But here's the thing, if you lie to us, you're gone.
Whew, that's pretty
Kind of
direct.
harsh, isn't it?
This is some half numbers.
People are like watching this show, kind of scared now. Maybe,
I was right with you until you said that.
Well, here's the thing. How have you felt when somebody lied to you? I mean, do you say, I can't wait to hang out with them, or do you say, forget it? And so what happens is we develop a culture in which we permit and say, well, that was okay behavior. But we need to have a policy that we really want to hear the truth. Now, here's the thing. If you say you want to hear the truth, but you get upset, then you're only to blame, because you're creating that culture that is rewarding people not to be honest. So if we're going to say we want honesty, we actually do need to positively reinforce that and encourage that to be the case.
When we think about creating that culture, what are some of the things that middle managers or people in positions of authority can do to help foster that culture?
Well, so one of them is to look at how we react. The other thing that I found out, and this is one of the sources of the 21 rules, is they actually need to speak the truth. Now, you might say, well, aren't people doing that? Well, here's the problem. If I have some layoffs coming, or if there's some major changes, I might say, we better not say it now. I've been in organizations in which the HR function has actually encouraged that business leader to not speak the truth. And so what has happened is they withhold the information, then ultimately when it comes out, the real truth, people feel trust has been broken, and then they ultimately try to leave the organization. In fact, the only people who stay are often the people that can't, or trying to at least give other people the benefit of the doubt. But here's the key. One of the ways to encourage honesty is to be the model that you want others to be, saying the difficult things. We all want people to be upfront with us. But the question is, are we really speaking the truth? Are we willing to say the hard messages? That's why I wrote those 21 rules, because it isn't so easy. How do you say things when somebody's going to possibly use it against you? What do you do? And how do you manage things when you're not quite certain all the truth?
Steve, I keep thinking about all the different facets of telling the truth and the different books that you've written. If someone feels that maybe their organization could benefit from bringing you in as an expert for a lecture or a series, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Well, obviously, they can go to our website, which is justbehonest.com. Justbehonest.com.
It should be down here at the bottom.
Oh, okay, good. You might say StephenGaffney.com. It goes to the same thing. But here's something I want to immediately say. If somebody sends me an email and says how they've used what we've talked about today, I'm going to send that electronic version for free.
Wow.
Yeah, so we sell it. So people are saying, well, what's a trick? No, actually, I want people to use what we're talking about. And if they do, I will send that to them for free. But here's the thing. They have to actually say they listen to the show and share how they've used it. And if they do, we're going to send them the electronic version for free. And the easiest way to do that is to go to our website, StephenGaffney.com or JustBeHonest.com, and say that they actually did so.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming by. And let's do this more often.
That'd be great.